Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Shoes here. This Irish Life Buried Ireland series. We're on episode 10, final episode, multi-part episode, and we are discussing the final end to the Crystal Canal civilization, and that consisted of Starfort mega wells all over the known world. We're going to continue where we left off, and that spot was, you might remember, we had a war, the War of the Roses, the Empire of Ross. We had two peoples fighting each other, the two factions of the children of Nemed, Star Forty, roses. The roses look like forts, very odd. I wonder, would the forts be those shapes if you looked at them all? I wonder, they're two styles. Those roses very different. That one there. No, they're very similar. So the Roses and the people of the Roses, the Rus people, the Roses, the Rus, also the Normans, but also the Carpathians. So basically, all of Europe moving over towards Turkey, the Middle East, like all of that area is covered as the Rus people, and possibly even into Russia and the area of Tartaria. But what our section of Rus was called, I don't know. But we were the Norman section, and the one of the Roses, if not both of them, were the Normans, and they were the warring Normans. And the Giants, they were Giants as well, let's just not forget. So before we go on, and we're going to look at Enki, Indra, and the god Janus as well. All of these are typographical gods of creation, and they are also linked to the likes of the gods of the Tuatha Danann and the Fomorians. So, like the Dagda, it could be very much equated to Elaha, very much equated. And the son of the Dagda would be probably this Brest character, Saint Patrick. This would be the child that goes rogue, which is a common story in all of them as well. Okay. So before we dip into that, we're going to just finalize the ending of Irish history. Where we were the other day was we were looking at William, and we were looking at do I have that behind here? No, I don't. We were looking at William III, William of Orange, the last main conqueror of Ireland. And this is the picture that we had. So you might remember from the last episode, this was the image. So at the end of the wars of the Empire of Rus, the winner, or the face of the winners, is this character here, William of Orange. William III of Orange. We're going to look a little bit into him. This is the coat of arms of William, Prince of Orange, Court of Nassau. So you could probably dig into that all day long. Jewels, all the tech. These are the coat of arms of all the old world Star City folk. This is Oliver Cromwell. He was a major helper of William in the wars of England and the conquests of England. I was thinking that he was at the same time period as Cromwell, so that William and Cromwell were the same time period, but I am not sure if they are the same time period now that I look at it. Let's carry on. And look, we're going to just kind of do a bit of a haphazard one here, right? I haven't organised these in any particular order, and we're kind of going to jump around the story a little bit. So bear with me. So this is Oliver Cromwell, big character in Ireland in the 1650s, the Battle of Drogheda, the Siege of Drogheda. He was the main protagonist in it, and he supposedly murdered an awful lot of innocent people. But then again, maybe he didn't. Maybe it's all an illusion, and that's what they want you to think. So we'll move on to the next character, and this is James, right? So King James, so James, Jacob, King James, Jacob, possibly the Jesus character, possibly the Dagda character, possibly one of the sons of the ruling classes, but the ruler of England and the ruler of the Norman civilization. In our story, he's the ruler of the whole Norman civilization, or a large aspect of it. He seems to be an important character. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just a local character. But anyway, he wrote a book called Demonology, and this is him here, and these are some witches. So remember I proposed about the witches, and we bring back in the T1000s, so the programmable crystal androids. Like, are these the witches? Is this what was going on? They had to get rid of all the androids. Is that what the Inquisitions actually were? They weren't killing real people. Is that what they did in Drogheda? Is that what Cromwell did in Drogheda? They make it out like it was a bad thing, but maybe it wasn't. Well, I suppose it was if you were a crystal android that thought you were a human. That wouldn't be too good. But I wonder, was that the slaughter? Were they getting rid of the androids because the tech, they turned off the tech. Although, if they turned off the tech, all the androids would have been turned off, so they couldn't be killing the androids unless they were killing them before they turned off the tech. So if that's like, if you know my thinking, you have to have the civilization turned on for the androids to work. They have no power supply if there's no power in the atmosphere that comes from the cathedrals, which is powered by the water. So the whole system is powered by the water and the Starfort megawells, and then that leaves an ether in the air that allows you to have like magical clothing, magic carpets, but also allows you to create T1000 type robots that have a programmable crystal, programmable liquid crystal shape-shifting ability that can then be powered off the overall power of the civilization. But if you turn off all the star force and you turn off the megawells, then everything else turns off. So the crystal turns to stone, and the megawells just spewed their dirt all over the place, and that's what happened. The civilization just turned off. So I don't think it was the Great Flood. I really don't. I think the Great Flood came before it in a different event, which ended ended the world before it, which we're going to briefly touch on in a moment. So this world here, as I mentioned previously, I think was the world that was created after a previous world was destroyed. So the Crystal Canal cities were created in order to fix up the world after the flood. So it would make sense that the children of Noah came to Ireland after the flood, and then they built the canal cities here. So Césaire and Partholon, Nemed, the Fir Bolg, the Tuatha Dé Danann, and the Fomorians, they would all be considered then the children of Nemed, the children of Noah, essentially, because they would all have derived from Noah's lineages. And we look into that in a moment as well, to see that the Star Canal civilization, was that the civilization of Noah, and was Noah just another incarnation of the gods that had gone before him? Or was Noah one of the number one gods in the pantheon, one of the number one giants, one of the number one Anunnaki, one of the number one Tuatha Dé Danann or Fomorian? Was he a top dog, and he's still around? And maybe has he got a T1000 body that he's been knocking around in for ages, because he was a shapeshifter, as we will see. He was a masked god, a god of masks, shapeshifter. This is Daniel, Bel and the Dragon. So I saw this picture and thought, that is cool. I have no idea what's actually going on, but we're going to have a look here, and we're going to see some people in sheets. Obviously they're clothes. This guy here, pretty badass. I wouldn't mind wearing some of this kit. Tech is off, I'd say. So this is all after the crystal cities were turned off. The crystal cities of Atlantis were turned off. You can tell by up here. I think like there's a potential, like these were all plastered in the marble, you know, like that marble that we see on these oftentimes. So the marble that we see in the churches, the different colors, the yellows and the browns and the reds and the greens, the marbly finishes that are on a lot of these columns. I wonder, was this marble finish everywhere? And the marble was the programmable crystal. That's what they were programming. That's what it was. The marble is the programmable crystal. So this is the Glorious Revolution. William III, William of Orange, that king that we spoke about a minute ago, in the late 1600s. So we're talking final end of the canal civilization. This was the Glorious Revolution, and he deposed King James. So the King James, Jacob. So William deposed Jacob, and then he became the reigning monarch of, they say England, but I'm saying the reigning monarch of possibly the world, definitely Europe anyway. And it was a Catholic versus Protestant argument, which one day the roots of the Catholic Protestant disagreement. What's that, I wonder? Like, why is that such a bitter? And that was obviously going on pre-war. Like the Catholic Protestant divide, like the red rose against the white rose divide, seems to have been the catalyst for the end of the civilization. I don't know if either rose has managed to win in the end. But Catholics versus Protestants, who were the Catholics and who were the Protestants? Was Catholics versus Protestants actually like lower classes versus the elite? Is that? And then they painted them as like Catholics and Protestants who think differently with religion? Or were they pushing religion a lot at the time? Was religion a big thing? Were they all about Jesus? Was Jesus a part of was the cult of Jesus and the cult of Muhammad and all of the other religions, all of those, were they all existing in the Crystal Canal cities with the gigantic mega wells, which are now mountains? Were they existing in those places? This is apparently this is just too funny. Like, I saw this picture and I just have to put it in, and I'm not even going to comment on it, but this is meant to be James the First, and I don't think it is James the First. This is James the First as a boy, and he's got, it looks like a hawk. Is that like Horus the hawk? Like, you know, the gods of Egypt, I wonder that they have like avatars, that like they could make an avatar, and that's why like Horus can turn into a hawk. Do you know? Like, is that what gave them the magical powers in the battles of Egypt? That they were all shape-shifting silicon beings, and then the silicon beings, they had to turn them off for some reason. So this is James the First, the same character as this chap here, supposedly. So these are supposedly the same. No, we're not going to discuss the finer features of human anatomy in this video, but draw your own conclusions from the pictures of the 17 and 1800s, of the pictures that the invaders have put up of the former heroes of the former age. They've put up pictures like this of them. That this is supposedly James, who could possibly be Jacob, who is one of the mighty leaders of the old Norman crystal star cities. A good guy, possibly. Was there any good guys? I don't know. I don't even know, was there any good guys left at this time? Or were they all just bad and rotten? Maybe this was him. I don't know. So it's James the Second, okay? So James the Second, this is not James the Second. No, no, no. And this is not James the Second. This is James the First. So this is 1600s, James the First. Battle of Kinsale, Flight of the Earls, 1609. The final Irish Gaelic chieftains leave Ireland. The last of the Irish Normans leave Ireland in 1601, supposedly while this man was the King of England. This was him when he was a young boy. This was that same guy, James I, and he was a young boy. James I died, or whatever happened to him, I don't know. But James II and 7th. So they've got two names. And I wonder, is this like different versions? Like James was around for a while, you know, and they're just saying that it's the same version again. So they're like, even through history, they said, right, he was around in the 1600s. Now we're going to bring him around again in the mid. So you bring him in at the 1600s, you bring him in, and then they go away, and then they come back at the 50, and then they go away, and then they come back at the 100. I don't know, I'm just speculating in my mind and rolling over my own thoughts. So, but he was deposed in the Glorious Revolution by William, the other guy we looked at, William of Orange III. And he was the last Catholic monarch. So he was a Catholic. So the Catholic Protestant thing, like what was that about? What was the real divide between Catholics and Protestants? What was the real difference between them that was causing all these problems? There was definitely more to it than a belief in Jesus or in Mary being a virgin or not being a virgin, which I think is the main difference. I don't know. I'm not 100%, but it's in my mind that that's popping out as that's the difference between them, and some ceremonial stuff as well in the ritual of the Mass. But what was the real difference between Catholic and Protestant? There was some big differences. You know, were they different races? Were they physically different? You know, were they, you know, was one a race? Was one less human than the other? For example, was one more evil than the other for some reason? Was one poisoned and the other wasn't? Was there a reason for the strife between the red rose and the white rose? You know, the Catholic and the Protestant. It's the same paradigm again. So the Battle of the Boyne in 1690, James returned to France. So what we're getting here then is that in this story, William was the invader. William was the guy who was initiating the war, and James II, who we're going to see, I think I have a picture of him. We don't know where James II is, but we'll find him there in a minute. James II was deposed at the Battle of the Boyne. And he was finally deposed. He got no help he was looking for help from, I think, France, and he fled to France then. So in 1690, James returned to France. So he was from France, obviously, and he spent the rest of his life in exile at Saint-Germain, protected by William's sworn enemy, Louis XVII. So that guy who was dressed up like a voluptuous looking lady in the last video, Louis. Do we have a picture of him here? Come on, Louis. I don't think he's not in that one, is he? Louis XV. We have to pull up the picture because it's actually too funny. It's just too funny not to pull up. Have we got it? We do. We got it. It's in this slide. It's in these slides. It's in this one. I didn't realize. This chap here, so James, and I'm not even sure if this is the real Louis. Like, I think that this could just be some dude that, like, hey, take a picture with all this fancy gear on. We're going to say that you're Louis XVII. But the real Louis XVII was like a giant. He was a giant Norman Fir Bolg, king of the crystal canal cities of France, you know. He probably was, like, I wonder, is there a case to be made to say that Louis was James II? Were they the same person? you know. So anyway, after the Battle of the Boyne in 1690, which was taking place in the Boyne Valley, he fled and he spent the time with Louis until Louis lost his life at some stage, I'm sure. Often portrayed by his opponents as an abolitionist tyrant since the 20th century, some historians have praised him for advocating religious tolerance. So James was known as a tolerance guy, just like James the Just, who was the brother of Jesus. So the real James, it seems that there's a very nice picture of the real James, except for they add in all of this carnage and attribute wars to him. But once again, I think that the invaders, they're just saying, they're making up that the existing people, the Norman people that they were fighting, that this James guy was a bad guy, but he was not a bad guy. He was actually quite a good guy. And then just going back to we're going to talk about Oliver Cromwell there in a minute. Just remember that picture there. This is Queen Mary, wife of William of Orange, and his first cousin. So this is Mary, another Mary. Remember we looked at Mary, like the Mother Mary, Mary, Mother Goddess. And this is definitely, there's a worship of the Virgin Mary. And I think in the Crystal Cities, the Mary icon was worshipped because you've got Marys all over the place. I think that she was the goddess of the time, Mary and her son. It's like the Horus and Isis, like Semiramis and her son with Nimrod, Semiramis, and can't remember his name. So this is Mary in the William, and there she's got cherubs, look, little cherubs here behind her, frozen in time. And once again, maybe this is not Mary. Maybe this is maybe this is Mary, or maybe it's not Mary. But she is of the winning side. So I wonder, are the winners would probably have to portray themselves as they were, because they were out in the public domain. So, but maybe they could rewrite history over and over again, which is certainly possible. But I'm putting this to after the end of the Canal civilization. The tech was turned off. These are stripped there of all their outer marbling. And this is the same Mary, the House of Stuart. This is that lady there that we just saw. And this is 1652. So once again, 1652 artwork, flowing dress, tech in the background. She's got like an apple there. Mary, Princess Royale, was an English princess, member of the House of Stuart, which is one of the ruling houses now, or still a house of importance. I think Princess Diana came from the House of Stuart. And by marriage to Princess Consort of Orange and Countess Consort of Nassau. She also acted as regent for her minor son from 1651 to 1660. So she was the queen. It's like in Game of Thrones when Cersei is the regent for her son, the young son, when he becomes son. Not Godfrey, is it? What's his name? The young fella, anyway. So once again, we've got like a kind of a parallel where the mother takes the power. It's Mary, she's Mary, and she takes the power until her son is old enough to be king, and the son maybe is just the reincarnation of the previous son. Excuse me. You could just go down endless rabbit holes, just endless. So there's a bit of information on Mary. She gave birth to a son. So this is the mother of William. So Mary was married to the stadtholder of Netherlands, William of Orange, William II of Orange, as a 9-year-old girl. So at 9 years of age, Mary, at a very young age, was given to William II of Orange. But there was a political situation that negated she'd stay in England and that she couldn't go to Orange in the Netherlands, which is close by, so very close to the UK in the Star City world. 1647, Mary's husband became the Prince of Orange and all of these. So he became a ruler of those lands, and he died then in 1650, and she gave birth to a son. So I wonder, is his death the son again? You know, it's like this weird cycle. You know, it's like Osiris, Isis, and Horus. The mother gives birth to the son, and the cycle begins again, kind of scenario. So that son became King William of England, who is the guy who won at the Battle of the Boyne. So William of Orange, William III of Orange, the guy who deposed James II, who was almost James the Just, not the Apostle James the Just, but he was a kind king. So King William defeated James, and King William was the son of a Mary, the Mother Mary. And then she died of smallpox in 1660. Did she? This is hilarious now. This is just hilarious. I don't know, is this wrong? But underneath this picture, it actually had text saying this, that Mary Stuart James. So this is Mary Stuart and James. So Mary Stuart and James. And is James a woman? You know, is that in order to have they flipped was the leader of the, and is this IE583? Is the leader of the Normans, were they female leaders? Were they all women? Have they switched the women and the men? Like, this is James here as a woman. Like 100%, this is a woman. She had the perfect fine features of a woman. And I cannot for the life of me figure out why they're saying that this is James the First. Maybe I'm wrong. When I saw the picture and that's what it said. So we're going to scoot quickly there to Naarden. And Naarden is a place in the Netherlands, right? And at this point, I suppose, let's get a map of Naarden to just see where Naarden is. And Naarden's in the Netherlands, and William of Orange comes from the Netherlands. So that's why I bring up Naarden, and Naarden is actually one of the first star forts that I came across to be covered in mud. So it was a revelatory. This is Naarden. This is the star fort of Naarden, and it is absolutely beautiful. I don't know why it doesn't just bring me there on the map, because I would love to go there on the map. Can I save it to my favorites? There we go. So this is Naarden, and all this area is starred. As you can see here, even as we come in, we're actually seeing it straight away. So these are all canals, and the Dutch, they reclaimed a lot of this land. I suppose it was all just flooded. All this land had fortresses on it. So this is Naarden, and what was happening in Naarden? Why do I even care about Naarden? I'm not sure why. Just the fact that it's a star fort up here, as you can see, or a star fort mega well. And if you dumped a load of mud on this star fort mega well, it would look like a hill. So it would. So if you had enough dirt up on here, up on the roof of the cathedrals, and it goes up on the side, this is what you have. So this is already half covered. The land, like the wells, have already exploded. The canal civilization is done here, whatever was going on. But I don't think any of this happened. I don't think any of these battles ever happened like this, ever. I think all the battles that took place were with high tech. Like everything was high tech. It was in the canal world. It was in the star civilization. Then they drew these pictures afterwards. Maybe this was the final cleanup at the end of it. Maybe they went and they took over all the natives and they did do a bit of slaughtering. I don't know. But I just can't see how anyone would have been in a condition. Well, maybe they did turn off the power, and when the power was off, they attacked. Maybe that's the way it worked. Is that possible? I don't know. But there's certainly many unanswered questions. I just get the feeling that like once the star cities were down, I think the war was over. I think it was done at that stage. I think that when there was dirt dropped on the other ones, like I don't think these battles were important. Like this little battle here, like if you're dropping dirt on a mega well, Starfort mega well, not even dropping dirt, if you're exploding that well so that it covers itself and all the surrounding land and destroys everything around it, and covers towns and people and everything in mud, and if you do that, and they like what's going to be left for what are the people like who the people aren't going to be able to protect themselves. These weren't a warring people. These were people that lived probably quite a brave new world type of existence, I'd imagine. Like there could have been heavy genetic engineering. Um, the people could have been highly socially stratified. We know there was slaves. We know there was different levels of society. There was a Brehon law system, so I'm sure it was fair. But then again, is it ever fair when if there's a social society strata? So you've got the mega well, you've got the guys, you've got the gods, they're the top dogs, and then you've got the minions below them of all shapes and sizes. So here we've got Oliver Cromwell, who I also think could be an equivalent. He looks quite similar, a little bit similar to Boris Johnson, I think. I'm just thinking of like he's in his armour there, poured into the armour, do you know? Um, is he a bot? Is this a crystal? Is this a T1000, Oliver Cromwell? These guys here, look at it. This is the arrival of William III on Guy Fawkes Day in England. So William III in 1600s, during the Glorious Revolution, he deposed James II, as we discovered. And this is the depiction of it. This is the late 1600s, and this is the depiction of William III coming to England. Like the gods are up in the sky here, right? But you can also see, like, which one's William? Is this meant to be William? And like here they are in their Roman garb. This dude here, a couple of nymphs. He's looking up at him, thinking, who is this guy? A couple of cherubs, lots of tech. Fascinating picture though. A couple more little cherubs with wings. Bots, not bots, T1000s, shapeshifters, maybe. So this is William II and Mary, right? So Mary, who was a young 9-year-old girl, she got married off to William II of Orange. And William II then, they had William III of Orange, who became the ruler of England. He was the leader of the Glorious Revolution. So this young fella here, look at those fancy clothes. This child was paired up with this child. And they, look at the detail here. I mean, like, it's like a photo, isn't it? It's like a photo. It's just phenomenal. He got a sword and everything. Proper Mac. Look at the shoes he got on. Look at they got the fancy shoes. They were fierce into these, like fancy female looking shoes. They really liked it. They really liked those shoes. Like we saw that Louis had a pair of them on a minute ago. Check them out. Huh? These like the Norman shoes. Like he's got the shoes on. It's like Wizard of Oz shoes or something, isn't it? He's got the shoes. They're the exact same shoes. It's just the style. Uh, Bizarre. Very bizarre. But this is William II, and text turned off. As you can see, these pillars are solid. We're out of the crystal world, and these lads, these are the future. These are the future of the invaders. And this guy here, by the looks of it, is this guy here, according to those pictures. Obviously, the picture is not exactly accurate. That one there, I'm sure. But we're speculating here. We're in the magical realm. Remember, we are in the magical realm. And we're staying in the magical realm, and we're speculating, and we're having a bit of fun. So once again, there's a lot of photos of the two of these, which I find is a red flag, where these are important people and they like to leave their calling cards around. But once again, these are William of Orange's parents. This is the young fella that we spoke about a moment ago. Isn't he fair? And this is the Mary. This is the mother. This is the mother of William, Mary, the mother of William the Third, William the Third of Orange. And we got some more cherubs again. They got lots of cherubs. These ones have no, this fella has no wings. He's just like a baby. This guy has wings. These guys have wings. He's got a helmet here. He's going to put down. So like, how could you ever fit in that helmet? Once again, is he poured into this thing here? You know, like although this is strapped on. So to be fair, no, he's not poured into that one, and that's put on. We'll leave you off this time. So William, you're not going to get the feckin', you're not going to get the shapeshifter treatment. But you've got to ask, you know, like, no comment. No comment. Who is the fairest of them all? Snow White. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? Definitely not you. Whoever you really are. I am definitely reckoning that he's not the real Louis of France. That's what I think anyway. Part 7 is rocking on. It's going to be a part. Is this going to be a part 10-part special? Is that the way this is going to go? Is it? So that's William. That's William. And what a character. This is his. So that's his parents. That's William's parents. William the Third. And this is Mary, and this is William the Second. So is he just like, you know, once again, William the Third is just an upgrade. Like apparently he died when William the Third was 2 days away from being born, and then William the Third was born, and then Mary died a couple of years later. The Williamite War in Ireland then, to just coincide it all, it was the Williamite-Jacobite War. So the Williamites versus the Jacobites. The Red Rose versus the White Rose. The Jacobites are, Jacob, as you remember, is related to the name James. So the Jacobites were the people of James, the people of Jacob in the Bible, the people of Jacob from the star, the crystal star city of Jacob, wherever that place may be, if it exists. Is that crystal star city of Jacob actually the Isles of Europe? I don't know. Maybe it is. Who is William then? Is William the slave? Is he the invader? He definitely put himself in the position, or was William somebody who was usurped by the invader? And the Williamites and the Jacobites were two factions, the Red and the White Roses, but whoever won, the Williamites, obviously in this case, because they wrote the history, are they really the Williamites? Are they really the Williamites? Or are these all just props? Is this all just a prop in a big screen show? So the proximate cause of the war was the Glorious Revolution of 1688, in which James, a Catholic, was overthrown as King of England and replaced by his Protestant daughter Mary, and nephew and son-in-law William. So his daughter, so James II's daughter was Mary. So did they overthrow James, so overthrow the existing monarchy, overthrow the Normans, and then they took the women because they needed the women to propagate, and this was the plantations, and then they interbred with the lineage of the Normans, the lineage that would never have interbred with them normally. They then started to interbreed with them. So then you had the Jacobites. So the Jacobites are, like, Mary is the daughter of the number one Jacobite, which is James. So you've got literally William taking Mary. And that's in, let me see here. So James was overthrown as king, where he was replaced by his Protestant daughter Mary and nephew and son-in-law William. So is this saying that Mary and William, is that Mary and William these guys? Like these are the parents of William III. What was William III's wife's name? Stuart. So this is the same Mary. So King Charles, eldest daughter of King Charles. King James and Charles are the same. Mary was married to the future, so William II. So yes, so the original Mary was the daughter of James. So the daughter of the defeated Normans. So King James was defeated. They said he went into exile, but he probably didn't. He disappeared. His daughter carried on, and she became married to William II of Orange. This is also this is apparently James, and this is Mary, or this is James and this is Mary. I'm not sure which. So this is apparently the wife of William of Orange II, William II. So who was William of Orange's first wife? Where is he? James II and 7th. Oh, William. Ah, yes. Geez, we've come a long way, haven't we? We've really delved into this William of Orange character. I did not see any of this coming either. I was literally going to do mythology and look at a couple of cairns and speculate a little bit. Sorry now for all this flicking. William III, right. William was an only child of William II, Prince of Orange, who died a week before his birth. And Mary, Princess of Orange, the daughter of King Charles, who was actually King James, who was the same King James of the leaders of the Moors, the Empire of Ross. William participated in several wars against King Louis, so there was wars going on against King Louis. Who was his wife? King of Scotland. He was known as William II. King Billy. Popular history referred to his joint reign with his wife. So Queen Mary II was his wife. So literally, like, I have to say, I mean, this sounds very suspicious now. So you've got, they say in the early 1600s, they say that you've got William and Mary. And William is the son of who's William the son of? William's the son of William the First. This is William II, and she's the daughter of James, or Charles, as they say, which are the same. And then, so that's in the 1600s, and then later on, within the 50 years, they have a kid, and their kid's called William III, and he marries a Mary, and they rule together as well. And that's the time of the Battle of the Boyne. So that's super fishy. And they all look so fair. So they do. I cannot get my head around that. And I'm just going to flick through these. I know that we've seen them already. There's old Mr. B. We're nearly back now. Here we go. I think we're nearly coming to an end of this William saga, I think. I think this is probably pretty close to a finish. The 9 Years' War also, if you remember back, there was another 9 Years' War in the 1600s. So the 9 Years' War in Ireland was the war that ended with the Siege of Kinsale, where the Flight of the Earls happened. And here we've got another 9 Years' War, except it's 100 years later. So we've got the 9 Years' War coming up again, except for they're saying this time it was France versus William's forces. So it was once again the Catholic Protestants, it was once again the Red Rose versus the White Rose. It's the same story, just rehashed again 50 years later. They just keep telling the same story every 50 years. And they keep telling the same story every 50 years until you get back to the time where the last world ended and this world began. And all of the battles relate to those final battles, I would say, before the Crystal Star City ended. That's what I would be thinking. So we have done very little to no map work whatsoever recently. We did look at Naarden there. We'll have a quick look before we leave. So Naarden, Fortress Hotel. And once again, this is a Star Mega Well, Starfort Mega Well. This is all covered in mud. And the reason why Naarden first caught my attention is because, number one, it's got grass everywhere. And number two, it's got mud on top of all of these areas here are all covered in dirt. As you can see, it's fairly obvious. But that was just a massive red flag for me. It's like, well, if the structure like this can be covered in dirt to this level, and it's this shape, you know, and obviously it's a man-made, you know, it's highly impressive, and it's there in your face. It's Naarden, it's there on Google Maps. It's not hidden. I mean, if you're looking at like Ishnok now, Ishnok just has, it's just flat, you know, like it was actually fully covered. They seem to have done a bit of work here. In the center of Naarden, we don't have any church, but we do have what's called the Fortress Hotel, which actually does look like a church. Let's have a look at this. Show nearby hotels. Can I not just have a look at this hotel? No? No, you can't, John. Don't be so silly. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what's this building here? It says the Fortress Hotel. It looks like a gigantic cathedral. Can I drop my man? That's exactly. I forget. I'll tell you, someday I'll get it. When my road go blue. Street view. We seem to be having a bit of an internet malfunction, but persistence will usually overcome it in the end. Third time lucky. Can we go anywhere here? Can you literally not drop your man in Naarden? Loading. Street view. I just zoom right down. Ah, sure. Oh, Johns, oh, Johns, oh, Johns. So here we go, Middle Naarden. This is your mega fort. This is your Starfort Mega Well. And this is Naarden. And what a quaint little place. And imagine this was all covered in mud. You'd have Tara. Like, I reckon that this is what you're looking at. Like, underneath Tara, underneath everywhere, like this is what you're looking at. It's covered in mud, and you've got all of these odd shapes under the ground, and then you've got massive cathedral type buildings. You've got like that cross there now. Imagine a cross like that coming out the top of a mountain, a giant one, you know, and you're up on the top of the mountain. There's stones all along, or the top of the hill, and you're like, why is there a cross on top of this hill? That's why. The center of all these stars, there is a big generation station of some sort. So whatever was going on, whatever was happening, the world was much more connected than we see it today. Look at this out in the water, just another little star. A golf course with more stars. I mean, the golf courses are very funny, aren't they now? It's like, what's a golf course? It's a star pattern. And it goes all the way out here. Sure, it's everywhere. Look, the stars, it's all over the place. The whole place is gridded out. We've looked at this in all the other episodes. We're not going into it again. Look at this here, look, the edge of this city. So this is Busum. This is obviously an important city. If I can see a church handy, I'm going to dive into it just to see what kind of iconography we have in the Netherlands. Okay, go with the flow. Ink Busum computer shop. Is there something beside it? Can you not? Is it only photographs here, is it? No, it's not. It is not only photographs. You can street view. I should just be zooming in, shouldn't I, really? That's the fastest way to do it. Let's get down. So look at this here. Like, they make it look like it's all old, and I've got it like it's a church like this close to me. And very similar, red brick. So they make it look like that's relatively new, not all old, new. But look, that's a serious building as well. And all these stars were this. There was a red brick, and I'd say the red brick was covered as well. Like, they had red brick covered in plaster, covered in this marble programmable crystal. Look at these here, look. Just more stars, more canals, more everything. More. It just never ends, and it's gigantic. So I think we're going to try and tie a couple more knots together as we finish, and we're going to reintroduce the story that there was a world before. There was a world on what we call the Earth. So this land, this place where we are, wherever it is. The shape of it is not up for discussion in my videos because it doesn't matter. Shape is irrelevant, and there's no way of knowing what it is or isn't from our lowly vantage point. But all along this world was a garden paradise, for example. And something happened to it, as spoken about in like the Garden of Eden. And along the way, there's been at least one cataclysm, if not two, if not more, like they speak of, I think 6. But as a tie-in to Noah's flood, just to give a little bit, to try to draw a line between this mud covering and the mega wells exploding and leaving mud and dirt and soil and just limestone all over the place. The difference between that event, which wrecked the Crystal Cities, and another event which may well have destroyed and flooded all of the land masses that we see. So the land masses that we see could largely be similar to what they were after the what was called the flood cataclysm, the Great Flood. I would think that I have, from what I can see, is that after the flood, that Noah is the builder. Noah is the rebuilder of civilization. Noah and his lineages, as in, like, there was people left, they knew it was coming, and they repopulated afterwards. But the world was not a great place after the flood, and it was up to Noah. Noah was given the job to repopulate and to fix everything, essentially. And I think that his solution to fix everything, so the world had, it lost all the magic, it was shut down, whatever weird Garden of Eden carry on they got going on, it was no more. We're talking about the gods of the Vedas here and the Mahabharata. I think the Mahabharata is the story of maybe the first falls, as they talk about multiple falls. And it makes sense that there's been multiple ages. And the last age is the age of the canal crystal cities, the crystal canal cities. And that was probably Atlantis, I would imagine. And Atlantis was destroyed, they say, in a great flood, but not necessarily in a great flood. Atlantis kind of sank, is what they say. So rather than be destroyed in a great flood, it's more that it sank beneath the waves. Not that there was a flood that got really high and covered it, which is what Noah's flood said it was. So I'm not sure, is the fall of Atlantis the flood? I don't think it is. I think the fall of Atlantis was the end of the star civilization, and it was when the crystal star cities got turned off and all the wells spewed out their mud onto all the landscape. I think that was the end of Atlantis. I think before the end of Atlantis, there was another civilization that existed and was also destroyed. But I think that the same characters were involved. So, with that in mind, we are going to keep an eye for the next section, part 8, and we're going to introduce ourselves to some of the benefactor gods of humanity, 3 in particular. I'm picking them because they're the most familiar, and I'm relating them back to probably like the Dagda or Elaha or Dalebath and Ernmas as the creator gods. So we're going to look at Enki, who is the god of the Anunnaki, and there's many parallels with him. He's the creator of the human race. We spoke about him before, and he has a very interesting relationship with Inanna, who we speculated is Eru, and she was one of the ladies who caused a lot of the devastation and destruction during the battles of the Wars of the Roses, which we would call them. So the end of the Crystal Star civilization, she played a major role in the end of that. She got the Mies, and the Mies, which were the control panels for the civilization, and she took those Mies and she wreaked havoc upon the plains and the lands of Egypt. So that was Enki, and we're also going to dip into Indra, who is the god of the Hindu religion, who you could equate to Enki. He is the god that I spoke about earlier, maybe in this one or maybe in the previous episode, that he is the god who was responsible for the cleanup. So after the Mahabharata, the world was destroyed, but the invaders were defeated and they rebuilt the civilization. And Indra was the man who rebuilt the civilization, and he is equated with Enki as well. So he is also a creator god in that regard who recreated the world. And we're going to look at an interesting story and a twist on these stories in a moment in the next episode. And then you've got the god Janus. Janus, Janus, IA. J is a number. I is the original. So IA, Janus. IA, Ea, Enki. Ea is the same guy. So Enki is Noah as well. So Enki, in the story of the flood, he actually warns Zizudra in this in the Anunnaki tale. I think his name Noah is called Zizudra. He warns him that there's a flood coming and prepares him. But I think that in likelihood they could be one and the same person. So here we've got Januarius, January, and so Janus, he's the god of gates, so locks and gates, in canals, transitions, time, duality, doorways, passages and canals, frames and endings. So he's very much associated with all of the features of the Crystal Canal world. And he's got 2 faces. He looks to the future and the past. So he's got 2 faces. So he's 2-faced. I'm not sure if shape-shifting is one of his qualities. He's often pictured as a ram, or a horned god, a goat. But then again, he's pictured as a woman sometimes. So he is a shapeshifter because the pictures of him are very, very different all the time. So Janus is Noah. He's the man who built the star civilization, the crystal star civilization, or his children built it. So I'm not sure where this leaves us in terms of who the people were, what they were, whether their ability to shape shift was related to them having avatars. Were they real? Were those gods actually flesh and blood in the same way as we are flesh and blood, or were they always just avatars? Avatars that have been playing with the world from beyond the veil that we can see since before Atlantis, and they are walking around in our world as normal people, but in these synthetic crystalline bodies during the times of Atlantis. Is that what was going on? And there was many of them around, and that's what accounts for all the duplicity everywhere. The stories are identical in every country of all the geography. And it just seems, and the people all look the same as well. Like all the Jesus characters all look the same. Um, and the James characters and the Kings, it's just too similar. It's like the same story is just playing itself out over and over again. Um, in our existing, like our in I suppose just to clarify, this story's playing out in this pre-flood world. So we're going to end it there, and I've managed to go over an hour. So please let this upload in HD, and I will be back again with part 8. So take care, everyone. Think good thoughts, and I will see you in the next one.